street kids. The children in London had quite a nice time in the early 50s because we could play out all the time. There were hardly any cars on the road. The only thing that we had to be careful of were the horses and carts that came around. So we would play skipping, we would play hide and seek, run-outs, two balls up against the wall, French skipping, hopscotch. All day there would always be somebody out there that you could play with, and it would be great fun. All the mums would stand outside the doors or sit on their doorsteps, nattering and chatting between themselves while all the children played in the streets. Schooling in London, you went to school from the age of 5 to the age of 15. The primary school, I remember being shown where it was, and I would walk there at the age of 5 and I'd walk home at the end of the day. I was given a place at St Francis of Assisi in the Old Kent Road. Now my parents, I don't think they chose the school, we were given it. It was in a particularly unsavoury area of London, not far down from the Borough Market part of London, which was nothing like it is as popular today. And there was this pub on the corner. My dad had said under no circumstances was I to walk that side of the road or even look that side of the road. So I would keep my head down going and my head down coming back. But it's a bit like Pandora's box. When you're told not to look, you can't resist peeking. I now know that that was the haunt of the Cray twins and many of the gangsters that were very, very prolific in the 50s in London. I was very fortunate to be born in London, to have so much history on my doorstep, and every time we were on a bus or a train, it would be reminded that the Great Fire of London happened there. Anne Boleyn sailed down the Thames and went in through Traitor's Gate to have her head chopped off. I would have Charles II had a tunnel from this entrance in Green Park through Whitehall into Haymarket to see Mel Quinn in the theatres, and it became so rich for me. I could actually see these characters, I could just picture them there. So yes, my love of history kind of stemmed from that. Talking about history, my other grandparents, Grandad Mac, worked for Harland and Wolff in Belfast, where they were building the three sisters, the Titanic, the Britannic and the Olympia. I don't know which one he worked on, although we've always joked in the family it must have been the Titanic. I know him to have been a boilermaker, so he would have been working on the boilers. In the 60s, our holidays consisted of my dad, mum, brother, and my aunt and uncle. We were getting a tiny little car, and we would go all the way down to Cornwall. That was a particular love of my dad, so it was a long way in those days. And very often en route, when you got near Dartmoor, there would be somebody who had escaped. And so I think certainly 4 times I remember the car being searched in case one of the prisoners had got into our car. I don't know where he would have got in because there wasn't much room with all those adults in this tiny car. Great fun in Cornwall. It was a place I learnt to love, and later on when I married, that was when I took my new husband and he fell in love with it too.
I was born in 1950 in London, 2 miles southeast of the Thames, and born into a very large family that consisted of 3 uncles, an aunt, my mum and dad, and my nan and granddad, and a horrible cat called Outside Ginger, Great Big Tom, a beast of a chicken called Queenie, and in those times the toilet was down the bottom of the garden. So to go to the loo, I would have to combat A, Outside Ginger the cat, and B, Queenie the chicken, who used to chase me in and then chase me out when I used to come out of the toilet. This would be all year round because there was no facilities inside. There was no bathroom in those houses in London. There was just one sink in what was called a scullery, a tiny, not even a kitchen. Those days were the milkman used to come every day, sometimes twice a day, with his horse and cart, and deliver the milk. There were no fridges in any of the houses, and also the coalman would come once a week to deliver a bag of coal, and again with a horse and cart. Then the rag and bone man, again with a horse and cart, collecting any rags or anything that anybody had chucked out. So there was really hardly any cars around, but there were lots of horses and carts.
A large lily pond is in Kennington Park in South East London. My nan would go through it twice a week with me in a pushchair, and the fun thing would be she would buy a cake, she would then sit by the lily pond and I would play. One particular day I was so excited to be there, I ran out of the pram and I ran straight into the lily pond. A huge, great big thing with great big lily pads. I promptly disappeared underneath all the lily pads. She was screaming. I have to think my nan was in her 70s at this particular point. And fortunately a gardener waded in and fished out this very slimy green little girl out of the lily pad. The news story appeared in the local newspaper for Kennington, and the council put up a fence all the way around it from that moment on. Right up until my nan died, she always said to me, "Do you remember the lily pond, Valerie? Oh, you nearly killed me that day." So quite a joke in the family. Looking back over all of those years, I think I've had a very happy time and quite enjoyed it, and I have really appreciated this opportunity to talk about it. I didn't realise I had so many interesting bits of my life.